Hey everybody, I am back with a new movie review this week. I'm doing it a day early because I might be busy Thursday evening, so I want to get it done now and out the way. Uh, so I'll be covering the 2005's Fantastic Four, and especially after the spoilers for Deadpool and Wolverine, where they bring back Chris Evans' Human Torch for not even just a cameo, but it's just like a good portion of the middle act. It was really fun, and watching Deadpool Wolverine really makes me want to revisit it. Some Fox Marvel stuff that I haven't seen in a while, that especially I have not reviewed for the channel. So I figured like this week and next week I'll be reviewing Fantastic Four and Rise of the Silver Surfer. And given the fact that what Kevin Feige is going to be doing with a female Silver Surfer, I definitely got a lot to say. Uh, you know, when I get to the sequel. But I already did like a months ago a video giving my thoughts about the female Silver Surfer, which should be on my YouTube channel. By the way, hit that like button and follow me in the links in the description below. Like my YouTube channel if you want to see all the different hot topics I have, as well as my video game walkthroughs, my comic book reviews, movie reviews, TV show reviews. It's all up on the channel. So, um, uh, this movie, now, granted, uh, not regarded as uh, not regarded on the same level as like the first Iron Man movie by any stretch of the imagination. It has its problems, but given you know the time that went by, because it's like 2005 and we're in 2024, is nearly 20 years old, and we have so many movies and other TV shows, comic book related, a lot good, a lot bad, and now we even gone through like that Fan Four Stick fiasco. That's still like one of the worst of the worst. I couldn't even be bothered even to finish all the way through. Definitely didn't go to the theater to see it. Like I bootlegged that crap. Even then, I fast forward through certain parts because it was like I just couldn't, and it was so drab and ugly. One of the most ugly looking movies I've seen. And casting. Now, given what we've seen about the MCU Fantastic Four casting with Pedro Pascal and all the rest, I gotta say, man, the 2005 Fantastic Four, in my opinion, the better casting when it comes to the Marvel's first family. Uh, Better done. The Fan Four Stick stuff, you casted Michael B. Jordan, uh, and have his sister Sue as an adopted kid, and all that seems so unnecessary. On top of the fact of how drab it looking, the laziness of the narrative structure, it's just like, and the way the Ben Grimm look was garbage, and the lazy way of how he got his catchphrase was so hacky. It's just like God. And then and Pedro Pascal already made my grievance about that clear, is the fact that this dude is so overused at this point. I understand people, certain actors can be popular and everybody want to cast them and stuff, but the well, I'm about to say the burden of proof is on the or at least the burden lay at the feet of the actor themselves to choose these projects, but they're not going to turn down money to be in certain projects. But at the same time, you got to use a bit of discernment. Like Jenna Ortega is obviously very popular right now, but she's not going to be, you know, throwing themselves into every little thing imaginable where most of it ain't gonna make sense. And then you will uh uh what's the word, you're just like you're watering down your brand. And that's what I'm feeling about with Pedro Pascal. He's watering down his brand at this point where, you know, like ever since, because the first time we were introduced to him was in Game of Thrones, and then he got casted as the Mandalorian. And since then, he was in Wonder Woman 2, then that Nicolas Cage film. There was like a couple of things that I haven't seen that he was in, but yeah, and now he's with the playing at Reed Richards, and it's like it's just like we can't just like have like a standard thing, and then on top of that, casting like a female Silver Surfer, and it's like, man, you're utilizing the Silver Surfer way too early in this game without even, of course, you're introducing Galactus as well right away, along with Doctor Doom, which also casting as Robert Downey Jr. That's a whole nother thing I already talked about. It's just like you're too many cooks in the kitchen, and you just like it doesn't seem like simple. It's not a simple story. You're throwing all this kind of stuff into the mix, and it's like I would have been fine with a period piece like we did with like Captain Marvel, like we did, who's set in the 90s. We did with like Captain America, where we set in the 40s, or we could have just had the Fantastic Four set in the 60s, like, and then go out in space, get trapped into the negative zone, get the cosmic rays, come back out in the present day, bang, bang, boom, done, and fighting Annihilus. And then that's your story. That's simple. But then you throw in Galactus. But not only you're in like set in the 60s, it's the 60s in a different universe. And it's like, okay, you're adding too much. It was already a simple little thing you got going on, but you didn't throw in things at it just to get more people involved. Like, none of these dudes can just settle with the IP that you got going on. It's like, you don't need to hire Chris Pratt as Mario. Mario is already a well-known IP that people are gonna go see anyway. But because people like Star-Lord, we need to get those MCU fans into this thing too. It's like, God, just let it be. Fantastic Four is is already enough of an IP. You don't need to try to get the Silver Surfer fans and the Galactus fans out there. It's just enough that you got the Marvel First family involved. And so with all those like nonsense, what they did with the Fantastic Four, the Tim Story Fantastic Four, when it comes to their casting and story, say what you will, it was simple. And in this first film is a simple origin story. None of that, extra mess. And their main villain, first one out the gate, should be Doctor Doom. And I honestly say, in my opinion, this Doctor Doom is probably like the best one. We'll get a little bit more into it. What does it say? I just gotta say, in terms of casting and pitching a story, Tim Story did it the best. He did it the best. It's like the spot on casting. Nobody was griping about it, from what I remember. Nobody ever was griping. They like, oh, that is a spot on casting choice. As a matter of fact, this is the first introduction, at least for me, to Michael Chiklis and Ian Gifford. because this is the first time I've actually seen him in anything. Uh, uh, but yeah, like Ian Gifford was like, God, that looked like a spot on Mr. Fantastic, because he's like, a little tall, a little lanky, but still, decently built and stuff like that. Yeah, because I expect him to be kind of like stretchy and everything like that. And yes, the stretchiness doesn't look good. I don't think you make stretchiness ever look good. Even after 20 years, and we got like, Miss Marvel TV show, which they try to hide the CGI with those crystal BS, but it's just like, you're never gonna make stretchiness look good. It's not supposed to look good. It's not supposed to be realistic. It's gonna be looking gummy and rubbery. That's the point of it. So like, just kind of let it be. You're never gonna make that look real. But yeah, this casting is probably like the best. So yes, directed by Tim Story. Ian Gifford as playing Reed Richards, Jessica Alba as Sue Storm, Chris Evans as Johnny Storm, Michael Chiklis as Ben Grimm, Julian McMahon as Victor Von Doom. We got Kerry Washington as Lisa Masters, and Stan Lee as Willie Lumpkin, the postman. Now, I want to address this here and now because I can't help but like just notice that Jessica Alba, Hispanic woman, playing Sue Storm, and then who's the character is a white woman. Kerry Washington, a black woman, playing Alicia Masters, as who's in the comics is a white woman. Now, in the TV show Fantastic Four: World's Greatest Heroes, which one of my first TV shows that I reviewed for the channel, which you can check out on my YouTube channel to hear my thoughts. The race swapping, not so bad at least when it comes to Alicia Masters, not so bad, especially if you get a dope actor involved. Now, it's touch and go. Sometimes it works, but I think it works best where it comes to B or C list characters that most people are not gonna flip too much about because they don't be utilized all that much in the comics like that. So you can get away with it with Alicia Masters. Jessica Alba, maybe because with the blonde hair, but also embodies the characters, Alicia, Jessica Alba, a lot of people still to this day still think she is like the weakest link in these films. It's because I blame probably the director because you don't really give her much to work with, but she, in some cases, bland. But, I don't know. She fit the mold of Sue Storm in a way. Now, like race swapping, I mean, you can slightly get away with it better than gender swapping, in my opinion, as long as the actor understands the role, respects the role, and does their research. They can make it work. But if like you don't give a crap on any of those bullet points, then of course it's gonna seem hollow, like you're just doing it just to do it. As a matter of fact, neither Jessica Alba or Kerry Washington would be on these press tours like it would be today, where it's like first Hispanic or black woman, this and that, and the third playing this high profile character from the comics. No, they just let it be and just let it show through their performance. So they aren't pushed back, but then again, it was a different time. So the Gen Z kids wouldn't have been born yet. So they wouldn't have been like shilling or, pissing and moaning about, whatever. But Jessica Alba and Kerry Washington did a good job for what they, had to work with when it comes to this material. Anyway, had to get that out the way because it's something I did notice, and it had, at least address in fairness. So, the movie opens up where Reed and Ben go meet up with Victor Von Doom to pitch their idea about going out into space using Dr. Doom's experimental shields, because it's like stronger than titanium, because through Reed's research, it should be strong enough to protect them from any kind of dangers out in space they might come across while they're going out to study cosmic storm that he theorizes is responsible for generating life on the planet in the first place. Of course, Doom knows about the whole situation with NASA turning down Reed, and so he made him this BS deal where Doom will benefit a lot more than Reed, but Reed will still, have some small profit in order to carry forward, because he's, it's kind of like the whole rent at the Baxter building that is like, having been up with the payments and stuff like that. So he's between the rock and the hard place. And on top of that, Doom is working with Sue Storm, who also is trying to try to insert a relationship with her. Which obviously he only sees her as like something that he can just acquire like everything else, because he is Doom. He doesn't have to ask, kind of thing. And I gotta honestly say, like I said before, this guy, because the first time I seen him was on the movie, TV show Charmed, and the other, well, I haven't seen this other TV show, but I've seen him commercials about it with him as the star, Nip Tuck, back in the day. And like, this dude is a really good actor, and he plays really good villains. If you ever seen the TV show Charm, I can see why he was cast as Dr. Doom, because Dr. Doom has always been like an arrogant, he's so handsome, and he's, arrogant, and he carries some air of not only arrogance but power and intellect that back it up. And this dude really does a good job in exuding that. And this dude is having so much, once he becomes embracing the Dr. Doominess of it all, he's having so much fun with the role. The only criticism I really have personally is the fact that it's more, if they would have carried on, I'd like to see this guy learning about mysticism and everything like that. They bring up about Latveria, and we get to see a little bit of Latveria in the sequel, but because Dr. Doom is the master of science and magic, and one of the handful of people who could have been the Sorcerer Supreme of Earth, because he is that knowledgeable. And it's like, that would have been also dope to have that, roped in. But given the time, people wasn't really fully embracing, like, or at least studios didn't think people could really fully embrace mysticism or magic, because they think like, oh, that's too far. Because mind you, until the MCU, or I gotta say, until like a little bit after phase 1 of the MCU, people really didn't fully embrace the comic bookiness of the world that they're trying to adapt. They're trying to too busy trying to ground everything. This one fully embraced the comic bookiness of the world it is set in, but at the same time, people, I guess, wasn't really ready yet, I gotta say. Because, if this was, take out of 2005 and plant it in the late 2010s, it would have been fully embraced. And it's like, yeah, that is the world of Fantastic Four. They got hit with cosmic rays. They got crazy fantastical powers, goofy, colorful costumes, and just knowing and embracing the world that they live in. And the audience will fully accept that. But back in the day, people, thinking it was like too corny and wasn't like realistic. People can't wrap their heads around that stuff. So the Fantastic Four and Ghost Rider and Blade, for the exception of Spider-Man, people would have things that Spider-Man does, people fully embrace because it can wrap their minds around all that stuff. But Blade, Fantastic Four, parts of the X-Men, Ghost Rider, they have to walk so the MCU can run. So that's why like Deadpool and Wolverine was pretty much like a love letter to like the Fox Marvel properties, because we enjoy them now, not only just for the nostalgia purposes, but the fact that they knew the assignment, for better or for worse. They knew the assignment, but we wasn't appreciative of, at least some of us wasn't appreciative of what they was being adapted at that time, because we wasn't really ready. We live in and we learn, and now we have a more appreciation for it now, because yes, some of those things weren't all that good, but parts of it did work. It still had fans about it. I love Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider, and I really wish they would have just bring in Nick Cage for the MCU for Johnny Blaze. He's supposed to be in Deadpool and Wolverine, but some scheduling conflicts he couldn't tear away from to be a part of this, which is a shame, because it would have been so dope, because like Ghost Rider was pretty fun. And I'm assuming Thomas Jane's Punisher would have been in it, but he gets like a nod, I guess. I assume it's Thomas Jane's Punisher, because that's probably a lot of people's favorite one. Then John Bernthal probably like the closest second. Now, of course, there was Ray Winston's Punisher, but I don't think people like remember too much from that. I think a lot of people remember a lot more with Thomas Jane's Punisher, because he was the first one. Well, there was Dolph Lundgren, but 2004's Punisher, I did a review on that. I think people hold that in better regard than any other Punisher until John Bernthal came around. So it's just like it's the entire Deadpool movie was a huge love letter to the Fox and other Marvel properties that gave us certain adaptations that some worked, some didn't, but all in all, they paved the way in some contribution to what we have with the MCU, and that should be acknowledged and respected and appreciated. So anyway, that's a whole another thing. Reed and Sue, had like a seemingly falling out, because Reed, I guess, he's a smart guy, but he is like socially awkward kind of guy, I imagine. Not too dissimilar to how like Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker was in the first movie, where he doesn't really know how to express himself in a social setting to like communicate like his feelings, because I guess he can't really do it without like quantum physics being explained, because he can have those kind of conversations very cool, calm, collected, and with earnest. But when it comes to like matters of the heart, is a little like, he fumbling at the mouth. And it happens to the best of us, even though not everybody's as smart as Reed Richards. And that's like Sue's biggest issue, because she has feelings for him, but all she wants him to actually like take that step, show some initiative, which is fair. I mean, looking back, what Sue wanted from Reed was legitimate, but she, to be fair, if she was actually feeling Reed and not Victor, she should just express herself and knowing full well this guy, the ball would have been in your court to actually say something, to express yourself, because you're both full grown adults and neither one of you can take your ego to a side, or pride, set it aside and just, hey, Reed, I know that you're not the type of guy who's like very emotional or take that kind of leap, but like I really care about you, like, so I'm gonna make the move here, even though it's more obvious the guy should be taking the initiative, and that's Reed's fault, because he should like push himself in that way. Now I get it, I mean, like, we all been there, but he definitely needed that push, where Ben comes in later on. But he's a socially awkward kind of guy, I can imagine, because kudos to the actor, he embodies that kind of like, that kind of nerdy kid that, never asked out like the hot chick in school that he had a crush on. Because he probably didn't think he would have been like, he's trying to be the good guy, but he doesn't think he will be worth, he's worthy of her kind of situation. So he's not that brazen of a guy, which is pretty much, I guess, his arc, which probably wasn't handled very well, but I can see, like, handled narratively right. He learns to like embrace being a leader and taking an initiative. I think it's handled a lot better in the sequel when he stood up against that army general, which I really, really like. And that's all pretty much Sue wanted. Is like, and like in the comics, to be fair, like in the older comics, it's like, Reed, would have behaved like this in the movie before he actually decided to tie that knot with Sue. And matter of fact, Reed and Sue's wedding in the comics is hailed as one of the most popular and famous comic book weddings of all time. I really want to like do a review on that at some point in the future. Don't know when, but yeah. So there's something here. But like many of the like Fox, Marvel properties, there's some stuff that wasn't like interwoven narratively well, unlike others. So Sue lets her know that they got, even though Ben Reed wanted Ben to be like the main pilot of this expedition, Sue pointed out that Ben had to be the co-pilot because she already brought on board her brother Johnny. So of course, the chemistry with these four, I gotta say, it's very fun, and because they're essentially acting like a family. where it's like, you know, uh, Ben and Johnny button heads, Johnny acting childish, and it's just uh uh and just like if you read Fantastic Four or watch anything with Fantastic Four, those two dynamics, because it's just fun to watch these two kind of spat and bicker. It's fun, and Sue has to be like the mother hen, and Reed's just like everything is about science with him. He loves these three, but he doesn't express it all that well. But yeah, the dynamic is spot on with the Fantastic Four. If you ever read a handful of Fantastic Four comics, all this is pretty spot on. Like I said, these four did their homework. Now, I imagine like the MCU Fantastic Four would have done their homework too, but like I said, there's a couple of things that like I hope that I'm proven wrong once the movie comes out. So I'm glad we got shown what the costumes is part of like a space suit kind of thing, but you eventually slap on the logo. Boom, you're done. And it's like experimented on so it can, adhere to whatever size and whatnot to fit the wearer. Once it gets hit with cosmic rays, they be able to change along with them. So they end up going out into space, where Doom prepares to propose to Susan, but everything gets interrupted when Reed realizes the cosmic rays are coming 7 hours ahead of schedule. So they'll be arriving in 10 minutes. So while Ben is out, gathering like the plants, to because they want to, have something to the cloud to hit in order for them to do research on. The station gets hit with the cosmic rays, and of course the effects is lackluster. But I think it when it hits Ben is a little bit more dramatic in my opinion, because Michael Chiklis does a great job where he's literally just, like he almost got like shot, like he feels like he just got shot, and he's, killing it over as his friend had to look on, can't do anything about it, and just like those two, they sold that that feeling, like, oh my god, like you have to watch his friend, get hit by these dangerous radiation, and he can't do anything about it. And then I kind of wish they showed the actual crash, but it's fine. So they wake up seemingly normal, but as time goes on, we see them getting affected by the cosmic rays in little ways. Johnny gets, starts, temperature starts rising until he actually flames on, and hooks up with the nurse, Nurse Maria Menounos. We see Ben, while trying to force a meet cute between Reed and Sue, which, by the way, I'm glad we have to see like an X-ray of his body when he becomes solid rock. His organs are solid rock too, and they still function like normal. So I'm glad we get a little peek inside where it's like, yeah, everything is functioning like it's supposed to. It's just all just solid like rock. So it's like we don't need to worry, because unlike like Mallrats, where Stan Lee gets asked a ridiculous question like, about how Ben Grimm's penis works. So if we get to see like the organs inside his body still functioning just through solid rock, guess you can assume his other anatomies still function, but they're just rock material, which I guess for Alicia is a good thing, I guess. But by the way, in recent years, I forgot which writer who did this, but they finally changed things up in the Fantastic Four canon where, like, once a year, I think, I'm pretty sure it's once a year, that Ben's powers recede and he goes back to normal for like at least an hour for one day a year. Or I'm pretty sure it's an hour. Or just like a significant time, one day a year, where he's just like a normal guy. So now he doesn't control it, but it's just like now he has to be Ben, so he doesn't have to be constantly like a rock monster the entire time. So I'm glad they that's like a proper canon change that I think people are more on board with. Just so you know, Sue starts becoming invisible. Then we see Reed stretch. Once again, the stretchy effect doesn't look good, but I argue not meant to be. You can only get slightly better as we go on, but it's never going to be realistic. And so they try to find Ben. He escapes, realizing what he's turned into. And of course, like Raphael from the Ninja Turtles, we get to see Ben Grimm dressed up in his little trademark trench coat and hat, which is really dope. We got to see that in live action. And he's trying to contact his wife, try to let her know what happened to him. She freaks out. Later that day, he goes on the bridge and he saves a guy from trying to jump off it, but he freaks everybody out on the bridge and causes an accident. And when the Fantastic Four show up, which, by the way, I gotta bring this up, because they hired Jessica Alba, of course, you get the kind of, needlessly getting Jessica Alba naked for mostly no reason, but just fan service or because sex sells kind of thing. Really not needed, but I have to address it. It's like, yeah, it was very, like your all that stuff was just like, hacky on Tim Story's part. Didn't really need to do that. I mean, yeah, she turns invisible, but the fact that you had to have her undress, even though she can, maybe because she hasn't fully controlled it yet, so I can give some leeway with this particular scene where she getting undressed to try to get past like this large crowd to get to the epicenter, but it all proved useless when like everybody parts and they get to it anyway. So it's like the whole entire scene was with that getting undressed was pointless. But later on, when she has to escape a crowd, it's like at this point you should know how to bend the light on your clothes so they can be invisible along with you, so you don't have to do this indignified getting undressed and stuff, because it's clearly for the movie going audience and nothing else. Anyway, they all help people on the bridge, which some people argue they kind of cause, but they still getting praised for it. And I get it, but you gotta see them in action. I guess he could have handled it better, but you wanted to see the Fantastic Four in action and using their powers as a team, because in the comics, in many iterations, their powers, work very in tandem with each other, or when they practice, it really bounces off each other very well, which you would like to see. And you see Ben's wife show up, leaving her wedding ring on the ground, or engagement ring on the ground, and just run off. Even after you witness, or at least are privy to the fact that he literally helped save people's lives. But it's one of the most like sorrowful scenes out of the entire film. That is just like heartbreaking. The fact that your body got altered. Now, in all fairness, she obviously didn't sign up for this, but the fact that like who this guy is, and you didn't even stick around to see like, or at least having a conversation with this guy, or let's see if there's any way for it to be reversed. None of that stuff. You just dip, and that is heartbreaking. And the fact that compound the heartbreaking, where Ben tries to pick up the ring, but he can't because of how his fingers are shaped and how big they are. He can't pick up things in a normal way anymore. And it just, and Reed just like, and this is, one of the key factors in like the Fantastic Four backstory, especially Reed Richards, where he blames himself for what happened to his friends. And is one of his biggest guilts that, of course, over time, he eventually got over. But that's one of the things that he was always racked with. And the scene is really selling it. It's like, he says, like, if it takes every breath of my body, I will change you back to Ben Grimm. So the news dubbed them the Fantastic Four. And this is hurting Victor Von Doom's bottom line. And, of course, the board is, like, casting him out. And I can't help but think about, like, man, they couldn't copy it, but it would have been cool to have Victor do his own version of Norman Osborn's like, "Out am I?" I started this company. Must I sacrifice? You gotta like, because it's really a very similar moment, except, I guess Victor is not insane like Norman, so he's a little bit more reserved about it. But I kind of wish we had a moment like that for him, because it's pretty much a similar scene. And once he goes full like Doom, when he kills one of the board members, he could have just like still done something like that, like, "Out am I?" Zap. But no, it's like he does like when he's like, "Maybe you should go back to Latveria, the old country." I was like, zap. Sorry, but I'm not going anywhere. But it's like, I like this actor. He's embracing a villain, and he's having fun with it. He's not all like drab about it like the Fantastic version. And I'm pretty sure RDJ will do like a good job with his own interpretation of Doctor Doom. I just really wish they could have gone with some other actors. A handful of the actors you haven't used in the MCU yet. You could have just picked any one of them. It's clearly so desperate. It's obvious that they're desperate. You could have just brought RDJ back as like a different Iron Man, but this, I guess, a little bit more impactful and get more people encouraged to go see more MCU stuff in anticipation for seeing RDJ as Doctor Doom and how he's going to interact with Spider-Man and blah, blah, blah. But Julian McCann is doing like a darn good job, in my opinion, as like, embracing Doctor Doom. It's probably so far done like a better job from what we've seen with the Fantastic, I gotta say. People might disagree, but so far, like pound for pound, he's done a better job. And I still reject people saying like, "Oh, the Incredibles are the better Fantastic Four." No, no, wrong, wrong, wrong. That's a separate type of thing. And I love the Incredibles, but it feels so like disingenuous to the history of the Fantastic Four. The Incredibles are ripping off the Fantastic Four. As a matter of fact, just a FU to the whole Incredibles, or people who are saying the Incredibles are a better Fantastic Four. It would have been very dope if Kevin Feige or whoever's directing the Fantastic Four, having one of them watching the Incredibles, because they all are Disney at this point, watch the Incredibles on their TV, and one of them shuts it off like, "What's this crap?" and shuts it off, kind of thing, just to dig at them, just to show like, yeah, like, no, we're the Fantastic Four. Put some respect on our mother effing name. Uh, uh, so, uh, so of course Doom blames Reed for the the crap malfunctioning of what happened. And of course, it's typical Doom. He doesn't take any responsibility at all. He blames everybody, especially Reed, for any kind of screw ups, and no responsibility on his end of things. So he put cameras in somehow in the level where Reed lives in his work area, to see how he's fixing everything, because he comes up with the idea of recreating the cosmic storm in this machine in order to revert what happened to them. But it's going to take some time, so they're learning their abilities so they can like be able to move around a bit without causing needless destruction. Of course, Johnny feeling cooped up, so he goes out and by the way, there's some deleted scenes that I encourage you guys to look up in order to, because like the Ben Affleck's Daredevil, it really adds to the film and heightens the enjoyment a lot better. So highly encourage that. But Johnny ends up going to this motorbike expo thing, and he rides around. He does his like flying, impressing the crowd. But he then retroactively put in the FF logo on everybody's costume. He gives them all superhero names, and embarrass the team in front of a live audience, which obviously ticked them off. And of course, you know, you see like the classic Ben and Johnny Storm fight, but Ben is just so like bothered by the fact that he looks like he does, and he can't go anywhere without people gawking at him, because he looks at himself as like a monster, which you know, is like a typical Ben Grimm kind of story, at least from back in the day. Not so much this day and age now. But they haven't been net to the ground for so long that, you know, it's kind of like Cyborg from the Teen Titans. After a certain period, I think around like the mid 2000s, or like a little bit after the mid 2000s, the comics are just like, or at least, yeah, the late 2000s, they kind of like gotten away from that tired trope with like, oh, I'm a monster. And it's like, no, like you're a superhero. You got good friends, family, you know, most times love interest. So you kind of like, you gone off of that kind of stuff. And I like the fact that, you know, we get to see each other's dynamic with each other. and the chemistry is pretty spot on. You get to see Sue and Ben, pair up and have some kind of uh, uh, their own particular relationship. Obviously, Reed and Sue, Sue and Johnny, and then we got Johnny and Reed. And Reed is a little bit more calm about it, unlike Sue and Ben, who's a little bit more emotional with certain things. He talks to Johnny kind of like an older brother in a way, pretty much setting up their kind of relationship, where he's trying to explain to Johnny that you gotta think things through, which comes to play at the third act, where Doom sends out a heat-seeking missile to try to take out Johnny, and Johnny has to use his brain to come up with an idea in order to, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm pretty sure you all seen this film like at least a handful of times at this point. It's 20 years old, but he shoots some fire at like a garbage barge to confuse the missile in order to, stop it. So they all learn from one another, and then of course, like Reed and Johnny, Reed and Sue, Reed and Ben, and then of course, same thing with Johnny and the others. As it is the latest scene where Johnny, because he loves the spotlight, getting endorsements and on top of that being like a superhero, like, oh, he's all for that. But there's a deleted scene that kind of hits home to him where this is before he goes to check up on Reed and Ben when things go down. Like I said, I advise you guys to check out the deleted scenes of the 2005 Fantastic Four, because it really adds a lot to the story. I kind of wish if there's deleted scenes in certain films and it's on streaming network, they should just throw it all in there, like the full entirety of what was shot, and put it on the streaming thing so everybody can like get the entire context of what they're watching, because it heightens the enjoyment of the film, in my opinion. But Johnny is trying to hang out amongst these friends, or at least these fans more so, and trying to impress all the ladies and everything like that. He gets into it with one of the guys when he's trying to hit on his girlfriend, and the guy's getting in Johnny's face. I don't recall him calling him a freak or anything like that, but he makes some kind of snide comment about him. And of course, Johnny, does something with flames just to kind of get him to back off. And of course, the girl sticks up for her man, calling Johnny like, dude, like, what's wrong with you? And of course, like, Johnny, then he kind of like, he plays it off, but you can see, like, because kudos to Chris Evans and his performance, he goes back to his table and he kind of like lets the moment sink in a bit. It's like these aren't his real friends. They like him because the things that he can, do. He's pretty much like a dancing monkey at a certain degree. And it's like, it brings up to what Sue brought up earlier. It's like, these aren't your friends. And it kind of like shows that, yeah, like, they only like me for, I'm just a celebrity. They like me for what I could do and the gimmicks and everything like that, but they don't know the real me kind of situation. And I can never just, he make a comment about how Ben can't just turn it off. In terms of the outwards on in, Johnny can't, on the inwards on out, he cannot turn off the showboatiness. It's just like, just be real kind of thing. You can see that would be his arc if they would have included that deleted scene in the entirety of the film, so you can watch it on the entire streaming platform. You get the entire context of his particular arc. Ben ends up going to a bar where he meets up with Alicia Masters, and of course she's being blind, which is kind of weird in the comics. It's like there's never a moment where Daredevil and Alicia Masters, ever interacted with each other. It's kind of wild to me that one of the most iconic, blind people in the comics never interacted with Alicia Masters. It's kind of weird when you think about it. But she's an artist, a sculptor, and she feels on Ben's face, and she fully embraces him and thinking like, "Oh wow, you're still beautiful." And she tells him like her name's Alicia. He's immediately smitten. But Sue takes Reed out for like a bit of a break because he's been working around the clock. And thanks to Victor, who's like getting inside Ben's head, saying like, "Oh, Reed's not really putting in the work. He's been hanging out with Susan a lot." So this caused a rift between the friends, and they get into a fight. So Ben walks away, and Victor picks him up and actually recreates, or at least realizing that the machine can't generate enough power to allow the cosmic rays to be sufficient enough to alter them back to normal. Because Reed tries to do it because he feels bad because he hasn't really gotten to the point of testing out on plants and other objects to see if it's like we can get it just right. So he goes straight into human testing on himself, but it's not sufficient enough, and he becomes a little bit more stretchy, out of his control. So luckily Sue was there in time to have him rest to, get back, so he can just revert back to normal on his own, or at least back to his normal stretchiness rather than out of his control. So Ben goes in, and Victor open up the containment hatch to use his electricity powers to create enough of the charge to allow the transformation to happen. But it, in doing so, increases his change, where now his parts of his body is a little bit more metallic, like the shields on his space station, which you get a little bit more scarring over his face and everything like that, because Doom is all about his visage because he's vain. But now it gives him more encouragement to wear his iconic mask, which I like, where it's like a trophy that was given to him in honor for his like accolades. And so he embraced the mask, and he knocks out Ben, kidnaps Reed to torture him, and we get a little science lesson about what happens to rubber bands, what happens to rubber when it's like super cooled. Matter of fact, in my teenage years, I actually got a rubber band and put it in the freezer for a long while, and to see what happens. And of course it gets brittle, obviously. Sue and Johnny sees Ben, and he instantly regrets what happened, and knowing what's going on with his friend, he has to sit it out while Sue and Johnny try to deal with Victor. Of course, Johnny flies away to deal with the whole missile thing, while Sue turns invisible to sneak. Because here's the thing, it's not. They treat like Doom's building is across the street, where it has to be at least a handful of blocks, or at least several blocks away from the Baxter building. And it seemed like they teleport there instantaneously. And on top of that, it's on the top floor. But she ends up going over there and tries to subtly unhook Reed. And of course, Doom spots her. They get into a fight. But Ben, getting back in the machine, turning himself back to the thing. And he says his iconic line, "It's clobbering time," which he got from one of those little toy action figures that Johnny was showing him a prototype of, where he given Ben like a catchphrase. So he fully embraces that. Honestly, is better than what we got from the Fan 4 stick, honestly. So he says, "It's clobbering time," and he beats up Doom. Doom gets up, tackles Ben, and they end up falling from through the building and out the building onto a garbage truck, and they end up fighting on the street. Then the other three show up to prevent Doom from trying to impale Ben. So Reed comes up with the idea of Johnny using his supernova ability. Now, Johnny displayed capabilities of going to temperatures over 4,000 Kelvin, which is getting close to the heat of the sun, and it can be very dangerous because he can light up the atmosphere and not only kill himself but everybody on the planet. But he knows that, okay, Sue can encase the flames. This is the whole teamwork aspect, because you like to see the Fantastic Four utilizing their powers in unique ways. So Reed envelops Doom to distract him, while Johnny prepares to circle around Doom and heating up the area to like the highest degrees possible, while Sue encases everything to protect everybody on the outside, while Ben, opens up a fire hydrant and blasts it, while Reed gives Doom his own chemistry lesson about what happens to hot metal when it's super cooled. And so he diverts the water to hit directly at Doom, while he's literally is like, man, the entire body being mostly metal at this point is like, and he's turned to a living statue at this point, or just not a living statue, but he's still like conscious, as you see in the epilogue, but he's now kind of like frozen in place at this point. So the movie ends where Alicia and Ben are in a relationship. Ben is embracing who he is now, and now Reed is proposing to Sue, so all is well, and they're starting their new life as superhero team. And that was the Fantastic Four. Not a perfect film, not too great by any stretch of the imagination, but I say over time we understand better, and I say it's a good film. It's a fine film. It's a fun superhero film. There's still parts of it like you're probably not going to enjoy too well, because narratively, doesn't make sense, or certain characters like Sue Storm might seem kind of bland in certain aspects. Because if there will be a weakest link, she arguably to this day still is, but far better for now than any other Sue Storm that we've seen in live action, even though there's only been one other live action from the Fan 4 stick kind of stuff. But it's a fun film. Because, it's kind of like, Batman and Robin. You can still get a kick out of this. Well, I don't even go as far as saying it's like Batman and Robin. I'd say it's on the same level as like Batman Forever in terms of enjoyment of a film. Because new to the assignment, the embracing the characters is like straight off the page, in my opinion. But anyway, that was the Fantastic Four 2005 film. I still argue as an enjoyable film. Yeah, I don't hate it as much as most people, but I think there's a fair amount of people who have turned around on it to some degree. Like I said, it's not like as great as like the first Iron Man film or anything like that. I'm not gonna be delusional and say it's like that. Over time, like we understand better, and I say it goes from like the worst film ever to like it's good, it's fine. But anyway, next week I will be reviewing the sequel, Rise of the Silver Surfer, before I start getting into the Halloween themed movies to review for the Halloween season. So I will see you guys a little bit later as I will get back to playing some on Destiny, because I finally can like play some Iron Banner and other stuff because I had to get through some other thing, but I finally can do it. But in any case, leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think of the 2005 Fantastic Four film. Have your minds changed one way or the other about it over the years? Let me know, and I'll see you all soon. Peace.